Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're really glad that you're here. There's a lot of competition for workshops this morning, so we're glad you all came to this session. And we are hopefully going to give you some ideas and learn from you as well about multi-site management. There's a reason it's called Juggling 101. We have a lot of sites, and it's a great, fun program. Our panelists are program directors from AmeriCorps programs and Senior Corps programs. And before we start, I'd like to just clarify a few of the terms that might be different for those different programs. I kind of just learned this yesterday, actually. We have different names for participants in our programs. AmeriCorps participants are called members, and Senior Corps participants are called volunteers. And what might be confusing about this is for AmeriCorps members, they recruit community volunteers to expand the service in the local community, and they are not national service participants. But for our purposes today, we're calling members and volunteers. And then also where we serve have different names. So for AmeriCorps, the placements are called sites, and for Senior Corps, they are called stations. So we'll be using both of those terms, sites and stations, today. Yesterday in our plenary, The Road Always Leads West, I was struck by how, and it's something I think we all know, but just to be reminded, how much our geography and our history affect our culture and the way we are and the way we do things. And I think our national service culture and our programs in the West are also shaped by this history and geography, meaning that for us, common practice is managing multiple sites across great distances, miles and hours, and in rural and remote locations. And we address a variety of needs in local communities, needs that the local communities identify. And they may not have one focus across the whole region. So we're different in that way. This panel of experts today are program directors from multi-sites and intermediary programs. And they're going to share lessons learned and provide some guidelines and some promising practices for you. And then we hope in the sharing part, the questions, you may have some other thoughts and questions that you have for us, and we'll tease out even more. My name is, I forgot to tell you, Jean Haster, and I am the Executive Director of Jesuit Volunteer Corps, JVC Northwest. And JVC Northwest bubbled up in 1956 in Copper Valley, Alaska. And we are 57 years old. We were established by the Oregon Province of Jesuits and Sisters of St. Anne. We're also beginning our 4th year as an AmeriCorps program. And we're a national direct intermediary program with 135 members, serving in 21 locales across the 5 states of Oregon, Washington, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho. And from our name, you may gather that we're a faith-based organization, and with strict adherence to the rules, regulations, and prohibited activities of national service. And we're a residential program. Our members live together in communities of 4 to 8 members in 24 communities. One of our struggles that we worked hard to overcome is meshing this 50-plus-year-old organization with a 4-year-old AmeriCorps program. It was even harder when it was a brand new AmeriCorps program. I believe it's been a great match for us. I think AmeriCorps has been a huge help to us in becoming a stronger organization, and I believe we're a good program for AmeriCorps, providing service in rural and urban and remote areas where there isn't service available. So I would ask the panelists to begin and introduce themselves, and maybe Debbie, we'll just start with you. We have programs with 15, as few as 15 volunteers and members, up to over 600. So you'll have a breadth of experience here.
Thank you, Jean. I'm Debbie Aoki, and I am with the Washington Service Corps, obviously in Washington State. And we're part of Employment Security Department, which is part of a state agency, so that makes us a little bit unique. And we actually house three programs, three separate grants that are AmeriCorps based, and one of those is a VISTA program, a small VISTA program also. We are an intermediary, so as I speak directly about our multi-site, which means we don't necessarily, we have a lot of responsibility and direction providing guidance, but we're not actually the supervisors out in those arenas. So in my speaking, I'll try to keep clarifying that a little bit, because sometimes that is a little bit different. We do have 647 members that we work with and place in agencies, and we are statewide. We have 39 counties in Washington, and we're have directly placed in 35 of those counties, I believe. So I think that, and probably our one challenge and sort of a promising practice, because those 647 members are actually placed in 400 agencies across the state, and we have 13 wonderful and delightful staff that and highly skilled staff that work with them. We found it a challenge to actually go out and monitor and make sure all of those sites are meeting all of the rules, regulation, compliance, and just motivational intent of AmeriCorps. So we put into place a risk management based monitoring process. And so, you know, we'll talk about that in a little while, but that was probably something that we instituted for a best practice. Thank you.
Thank you. John.
Hi, thank you. I'm John Brenny from Pendleton, Oregon. I am the project director for a foster grandparent and senior companion program. We have 40 foster grandparents and about 35 now senior companions. And we're sponsored by a mental health agency, which is appropriate in Eastern Oregon. I have been a director for around 20 years, so I've had some experience. Probably the promising practice that I would mention is that thoroughly training the staff of the volunteer station is just essential. You can't stop, for example, with the principal of a school. You've got to make sure that the teachers understand the program, the assistants, the secretaries, everybody, and even the site councils we have found to be very helpful in promoting the program. So look forward to this discussion. Thank you.
I'm Margaret Mason, and I am the RSVP Program Director in Southwest Montana, and we serve both Gallatin and Park counties. Some of the challenges that perhaps we face are the geographic distances. We have mountain passes that need between just our satellite office and our Bozeman office, so that can be challenging at times. We have 90 miles between communities where we are looking to expand or just always make sure we're meeting that community need and being a resource. We have 560 volunteers and close to 100 different workstations or sites. And as I would say, two of my program coordinators are here, and I think some of their biggest challenges are the communication and the value that the workstations see in the paperwork process and making sure that timesheets are turned in and things of that nature. But really just allowing the staff to make those personal contacts is very, very important, and a way to overcome that challenge is making sure that they recognize the value of what we do.
Good morning. My name is Sonia Vent. I'm with Rural Cap, which is in Alaska, Anchorage. I have 15 members around the state that I hire for select for every year. And my program is Birch, Building Initiatives in Rural Community Health. Alaska is a big state, and we'll be talking, my part will be sharing with you some of the challenges of supervising or finding site hosts for those multiple sites.
Thank you, Sonia.
Good morning, I'm Charlie S. I'm also with Rural CAP, which is Rural Community Action Program Inc. in Anchorage. I'm a Raven AmeriCorps program coordinator. That stands for Rural Alaska Community Environmental Network. We do environmental work, and I select 20 sites from around the state. The state is 660,000 square miles, 90,000 square miles of water, 3,000 rivers, 3 million lakes. And so I had a site one year that was nearly 1,000 miles away from the home office. And so we remote manage those. We try to bring them in and train them through all kinds of weather and different little puddle hopper planes, and try to give them enough support that they not only stay on for retention, but actually affect some change out there. So that's us.
Great, thank you, everyone. We have a few questions that we're going to address from the panel, and I would ask that if you have a question about this part of the presentation, if you could just jot it down on a piece of paper, and then we're going to take about 15 minutes to 20 minutes at the end to have a dialogue with questions with you all, if that's okay. And our remote folks too, our virtual people. So our first question is, let's up there on the board. What is your process for recruiting sites and stations, and how do you ensure that they're going to be good partners from the outset? John, would you like to start there?
Thank you, Jean. As I indicated, we're in northeastern Oregon primarily. We have 5 counties that we serve, and we cover several thousand miles in that territory. So what I have done is to group our foster grandparents and senior companions into 6 areas where there's a reasonable amount of population. And those would be the Pendleton area, the Hermiston area, Umatilla, Oregon, Ontario, Oregon, Burns, and Baker City. And all of these places are not next to each other, let me assure you. So when we look for a volunteer station, and there are not a lot of volunteer stations in these areas either, which is not easy, and I'm the only staff person who is doing this, so there's a lot to it. Anyway, we look for somebody who's enthusiastic about being a volunteer station, somebody who has enough staff really to supervise the volunteers, somebody who's accepting of our model of service, be it foster grandparents or senior companions. And then, of course, we look for donations to the program. We look for meals, and meals are getting tougher to come by too, as I'm sure you know. We look for speakers at our end services. We look for assistance with fundraising. We look for compliance, of course, with the Memorandum of Understanding. And we ask that the volunteer station also be reachable by the volunteers, because if somebody has to go an excessive distance, it's very expensive to do mileage reimbursement, as I'm sure you know. So we try to place the volunteers as close to the volunteer station as possible. And as I indicated earlier, we really try to train everybody at that volunteer station, including their site council members, and they're a good source of donations as well. And we include the superintendent when we do our initial orientation and training. So again, there's just one of me, so the challenge I have probably that's greatest is finding time to do all this. But we have been successful so far, so thank you.
Thank you, John. That's wonderful. Some really great tips there. I really like especially the training of everybody. That's a really key part, and it's something I would like our program to learn from. I think we work very closely with the site supervisors, but not always everyone in the program, so they know what we're doing. Sonia.
Yes, my part, I don't have nearly the experience that John has. I'm just
You're lucky, yeah.
I'm just completing my 2nd year as the program coordinator and not the director. So both Charlie and I are program coordinators for our programs. I have 15 sites around the state, and we're in the recruitment process right now, which started last month, and it's a mass mailing, just mailing out all the recruitment materials, emailing, and through the regular mail, and sending out postcards. But one thing I think I've discovered this year is just really strengthening the recruitment letter to change the language to where it helps the host site to think of being more accountable, because I think that's what I've seen through my experience, is that the host sites haven't been as accountable as I would like them to be. And so strengthening up that language to help them to realize that they are accountable and responsible for the program that's coming within their community. And then also following that up with a really strong interview process to ask the right questions. And so we've done that this year, changed our recruitment material. And so I'm finding that people that are reading that material are coming back and asking the right questions. What do you mean by supporting the program with an office space, you know, and talking about that and leading into other areas of accountability. So,
Thank you, Sonia. I think that's really important that people have a sense from the beginning of what they're getting into. So there's no surprises down the track. That's a great tip. Thank you. Our next question is, what has been your greatest challenge? And this is, the whole panel is going to answer this one. What has been your greatest challenge with multi-site station management, and how have you overcome it? So we'll just popcorn this one. Anyone want to start?
I'll start.
Thank you, Charlie.
I would say it's retention. I'm going into my 7th year recruiting members. I do 20 of them, and when I started the program, I would get a neighborhood of 70 applications from around the state. We select 20. I was doing 40 to 50 interviews. In the years that have transpired, I'm now down to lucky to get 45 to 50 applications. The stipend stays the same, the living allowance. And so times economically have changed in rural Alaska and elsewhere. So we're up against that. And so what happens is selling a national service program as that and not a job has been tougher. So I've tried to modify that language and get that spirit of what that is in a place that's economically strapped many times. And so retention has been the issue. I'm trying now to develop peer-to-peer. As you train your teams coming in, if you have if you're fortunate enough to train them all at once, I get a crack at all 20 of them. I do some really intense team building so that they can rely upon each other. I'm the coordinator, and I advertise to them that I'm 724. And texting has changed everything in rural Alaska. GCI came in and just dominated the communications front. And so now my members can be anywhere, out on a boat, and I get these texts. So the communication has really gone up. So anyway, I say if you're thinking about quitting or you have anything going on, text me middle of the night, whatever, and some do. And this is the challenge for those of you that say I have a home life, I have a family life, I have personal time. I find that if a few minutes here or there can head off a problem that could take half a Monday,
That's right.
it all kind of works out. You know, I get my breather moments in the office. And sometimes days are easier just compiling paperwork or doing some tasks like that. But if you have a strong member among those 20 or 50 or 600, we have one now that's created a Facebook site. She also created another site that offers links to support for like some of the forms that we require in reporting. My retention is still looking pretty bad this year, but I've had cases where 2 of the members, because of the strong team building, were reaching out to each other during the course of the year and have kind of pulled each other along. So I think that I've gained probably 3 members because of the process.
Cool.
But
Thank you. I'll go. Margaret.
So as I mentioned earlier, with the paperwork, you know, we are all required to have our workstation sign a memorandum of understanding, which that is our agreement of what the workstation will provide, not only just for the volunteers, the support, the training, but also what they'll provide for our office in reporting our impact or any kind of measurement. That has not been as challenging. My staff has been very proactive in keeping those up to date and signed, and that allows for that communication. The timesheets, just making them understand the workstations, you know, what that means for us and how that translate into what we do as an organization. The other thing that is we don't necessarily turn away workstations. We follow the guidelines. They need to be a nonprofit, a government, or healthcare. but we always want to be that community resource, and that has really opened the doors for us, as Shannon, one of our coordinators, will attest to, is being able to just be the person and be the organization that other organizations want to partner with. And that has really opened those doors for us, so they do see the value of what we're doing. We are at those tables. We are answering the local community need, and just making sure that we're in the forefront and people think about us and think about our volunteers. And that's sort of a way to, again, establish that value and reputation, and not just be there, but kind of walk the talk. Not just speak to what we have done, but what we can continue to do and how we can be a part of that. Collaboration is a big part of that solution, I would feel like. So that's what.
That's a great relationship. I'm hearing relationship in both of those really strongly. John?
Right. I think time management is a huge issue for all of us. It certainly is for me. So you have to learn to use your time properly and decide what's important and what isn't. And then dealing with the volunteer stations, you need a strong volunteer station representative, somebody who's going to advocate for you, who understands the program thoroughly, and who's really going to try to do everything for that volunteer to make them successful in that site. And again, that all goes back to training and relationships. So.
Thank you, John.
And one of the things that we've seen as a challenge, but we're excited about, we changed from a fixed amount, from a reimbursable grant to a fixed amount grant. And in doing that, moved away from as tight a financial oversight of all of the sites that we deal with, all of our 400. And we moved then to a very strong performance measurement mode to support, because that replaces your financial, such tight financial review of all those sites, because you don't have in-kind match and that type of thing. So good on the one hand, but the challenge is really because we also are working with 5 of the focus areas out of the 6 in terms of performance measurement. And, we have 1 or 2 of the performance measurements per focus area. So it's sort of retraining all of these sites to really see the criticalness and the reporting requirements, the data collection role. And, it's going to be a 2 or 3 year process. So we've had to, our staff has really put some effort, and will continue to put some very strong effort into changing our approach, doing a lot of education with our sites, doing webinars, conferences, through our monitoring. We're doing steps, and sort of progressively have planned out to do steps of how we turn that around over a 2 or 3 year period, because even though most sites, most organizations are doing something with performance measurement, their own agency requires that. But we're asking them to do maybe something a little different, collect it a little more diligently, report it on a quarterly basis. They may report on other channels. So that's been an interesting challenge, but a good one, and we think it's going to have really high payoff in the end. And we really see us moving more to outcome rather than, so much just counting outputs and things. So it's a good challenge, but it's definitely been a change, and one over a course of time.
That's certainly a challenge with 5 performance measures.
Yes.
Congratulations.
but we almost, but we almost have to do that with the size that we are.
an
So we
intermediary.
need to pick that. So it is something we feel we need to do, and is one of our strengths.
Thank you, Debbie. Sonia?
Yes. I think one of the challenges for my program has been training, because we just moved in the opposite direction than Debbie's. We're now fixed, but We're trying to measure, my program again is building initiatives in rural community health. And the focus of the program is for 12 to 18-year-olds in suicide and substance use prevention. And so working with youth in wellness activities, basically in partnering with the school in different, with the different classes, also trying to incorporate a strong cultural component. So with all of that and introducing new tools into the program has been a real challenge, and figuring out how to measure that. So.
Thank you. There's a lot of overlay with a very serious issue, and pulling in cultural component is really important. Thank you. Let's move on to another question. How do you monitor your sites and stations to ensure compliance? Everyone's favorite. We were at the national meeting. I don't know how many of you were at the national meeting, and Karen Baker, who actually is a former judge and volunteer from the Northwest, is the she's the executive director of the California Volunteers, and she was monitoring the compliance session, and she made it into a party. And it was the most fun compliance session we ever had. But I'm not sure how we'll do here. But anyway, Debbie, would you like to talk about monitoring and compliance?
Oh, nothing more. It's a favorite topic of us at the Service Corps. Compliance or us is kind of what we've taken the motto on there. It's our mantra at the Service Corps, and we've actually been through several audits in the last 3 years by our state auditor and an OIG auditor, and of course the usual monitoring. So compliance and flowing down through monitoring to our sites is very important to us and to our staff. And because there are, I know it sounds like a lot to have 13, but 13 to visit all those sites, we really had to resort to another method. We could not presume to visit all of those sites and have one-on-one monitoring. The other thing is we were a bit insulting to some of our sites who have been with us for a while, had been with us for a while, that, you know, complete requests for applications, do MOUs with us, have had no other issues, and, you know, place and manage their members very well. So why continue to monitor them and apply that same stringency to that? So we moved a few years ago. I'll certainly give our program and operations director the credit for that, and our staff that worked in putting that in place, a risk-based assessment. So we have certain criteria and materials that we ask our sites for, and you know, that's usually around, like, you know, they're looking at their insurance, looking at their A133 audits or other financial materials that they have, policies, you know, their board work, you know, some of the very basic things that we can assure that there, and then we look at all the other paperwork that we've already requested from them, enrollment and that type of thing. So we then score them and then base our visits on high risk, and then always revisit brand new sites. So those are, and then we go out and visit the sites, and we have an actual monitoring report where, again, we're looking specifically for us in AmeriCorps programming at, you know, making sure background check information is on file out there. We still do look at their financial records to some degree, member files, and we certainly have our staff talk with members at the sites and confirm that everything is indeed going well. We look at position descriptions and those kind of things. So that's how we handle monitoring, and then we accomplish that within a pretty rigorous period of time. And if there are findings, you know, we track all those and file. So usually by April of every year, we're complete with that, and we're ready to go with the next RFP process. And so handle
Debbie,
that.
I don't know how you'd feel. Is that something you would be able to share with folks, or?
Sure. We have a risk assessment tool and a monitoring tool. So if anybody wants to give me their card afterwards, I'd be more than happy to send them some things. We're kind of in the process of updating it for this coming year, but can certainly share last year's documents.
That would be invaluable.
Yeah, that's
Thank you very much. And Charlie?
As many of you know, compliance is becoming more critical every year. There's more and more requirements. I think the things that you can't operate a program without, as far as the protocols, and then many of you are probably strapped with the constraints within the focus of your grant. And so you have these allowable activities. So in reaction to the increase, supervisor and I came up with a big spreadsheet, an internal checklist, and we just went down the cells. And last I looked, it was about 130 cells deep. These are the things that need to be in these folders. These are the forms we need to be in compliance with CNCS. And so a lot of that is done upon recruitment. You do the interviews, you do the site selection. I score my folks because I was once questioned about my criterion upon site selection, so I have a methodology for that. Took a while to develop that, but you can do it. And the other piece I do then is during the training, we make sure every piece of like the birth certificates and the marriage certificates, if there's been a name change, all these little things are checked off. And so I have a sheet called Members at a Glance, so I can check on things like MOAs. Why isn't that MOA in from that site? Or MOU.
Either way.
About the same thing. But anyway, so then we have them brought in for a week of orientation in January, right after we recruit. And it's there that we give them the prohibited activities. We give them all the things that are requirements of the AmeriCorps program. And as far as grant focus, we'll get into that in a mid-year training in May or April. And we'll look at solid waste recycling. That's sort of the goal of the grant. But anyway, back to the piece about compliance, we tell them what they need to do. And then for my monitoring, you're kind of at the whims of the sites and the site supervisors. So education. I moved to a weekly teleconference instead of a bi-weekly when I took over the program. And so I always have little pieces and bits in there. We have a really extensive AmeriCorps manual. And I ask members to refer to that. I have quizzes for them to find things within that. And just things to make sure that they stay knowed up on it, because my monitoring is just to trust that they'll do this stuff, and then I review the reflection logs in Encore like a hawk. I read every line. If activities are vague, I say, can you elaborate on this? This sounds like this could be misconstrued for something that's not allowable. The very few times I find something that sounds prohibitive, mainly it's just within the scope of the grant. So a good database, reading your reflection logs, and having colleagues give it a second pair of eyes really helps.
Right. Charlie, I just want to clarify, was the weekly teleconferences, that is with your members?
Yes.
Okay.
And site supervisors too, from
Oh,
time to time, yeah.
okay.
But they're welcome to join, and sometimes I'll have a teleconference specifically, maybe once or twice a year.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question is, y'all learning lots of great stuff? I am. I'm taking notes laboriously. How do you build strong relationships to retain excellent service sites and stations? And how do you balance maintaining those strong, experienced sites and stations with ensuring that you're meeting diverse community needs and bringing on new sites and stations? So, Margaret, you want to try that one?
I'll try it, but as building the relationships go, the follow up and follow through has been very, very important and valuable. A little bit of history of myself. I was the program director of the RSVP program from 1999 to 2004, and I was fortunate enough to stay home for a few years, raising children, and just started back last June. So I've been back in the position for a year and a half. So it's been, I was gone for about 8 years and got to see change and not be a part of all the reductions of funding and things like that. And that created a lot of alarm and uncertainty in the community among our program staff, as well as just the unknowns. And so coming back into a program like that, where there had been some alarm and there had been some discontent, what we've been able to do is start over in a way that has said, no, we are very confident in what we're doing. We are here to stay. Our program sponsor, regardless, will make sure that we stay. They see the value in the program and for seniors and volunteering. And we've just added that element of follow through. The program coordinators, after the memorandum of understandings have been updated, and we really do work on doing that every year if possible, especially when a compliance visit comes along, but really not waiting the 3 years, but really just making sure that we are in contact with those contacts at the stations. And as everyone knows, station contacts change as well. People change jobs and things to that nature, and it's really staying on top of that. It's being very, very organized. I have the benefit of having, she would absolutely declares herself as OCD on all that kind of organizational skills, and it is invaluable to our office and to our files and to our database. And that is really, really important, because then there's accountability on our own end, as well as asking those and letting the stations know that we still are around, because our program's been around since 1972, and we have workstations that have been with our program since 1972. So they've probably forgotten that they even asked us to recruit volunteers, and it's just maintaining that relationship. It's maintaining that, it doesn't have to be monthly, but it's ongoing in the sense of follow-up. If there has been a new request, how is that volunteer working? Did they meet the needs that you were looking for, or do you have additional needs? And then we do an annual evaluation to our workstations. I learned last year the hard way. I did it in a paper version, and in years past, while I was gone, they'd done it in a SurveyMonkey version, and that really increased the participation of that. Not for our volunteers. Volunteers want the paper. They want that. That's their sense of communication with us. But with the workstations and with email and all of that, the return rate was quite a bit higher. And from that, we do get that feedback on how we're doing, as well as are there other needs that we can meet. And so that's how we continue that relationship. And like I mentioned earlier, it's being a part of network community meetings, and allowing or scheduling the time, making sure that you do allow the time within your day-to-day, because it can get hard with all of the grants and the reporting and all of that, but that contact with the people and letting people know that you are a vital member of the community and can meet these needs. So.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of ongoing contact. I love that follow-up and
that's
follow through.
important.
That's really great. Charlie, you have any extra comments there?
Yeah, a lot of what Margaret said applies to what the strategies we've used there. What I have learned through the years is when I get my brand new members, I also a lot of times get a brand new site supervisor. And so the relationship with that site supervisor many times surpasses that of the member. Member might serve 1 year, they might not make it a year, they might serve 2 years. But in my 7-year tenure, I've got relationships with these folks, and I keep track of where they go. Some of them change positions from different environmental wings of the tribal governments or whatever, and I run into them at various conferences, and I always say, how's it going out there? Sometimes they can't find me a member. We don't think he'd make it. We don't think she's quite got it. And I say, well, I won't forget you. We'll come back next year. There's always next year. So I keep relationships going with a lot of folks out in different communities that have either been in or haven't been yet. Sometimes folks come up to me and ask about the program, and I take their business card and we start dialogue. And they learn through the dialogue what the program is about and if it's a fit for their community. And as far as retaining members, I just tell them I love them. You make a choice to love people. You have to. And I think to get out there and say at the onset, I'm yours for life if you want me, call me. And so I have people, I was just chatting with somebody this morning who was a member for 2 years and is now one of my site supervisors. She well knows the program. Her member just failed. We lost that one. And she's now hesitant. She's saying, I want to give you somebody good. I said, well, look hard, but I'll never forget you, and we'll try again next year. So I think that personal relationship with people really goes a long way. If you care, it shows. And I think if you don't care, you have to start looking slowly for another line of work and segue out gracefully.
Relationship. It's like in real estate, it's location. AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, relationship. We have one more question. Describe how you orient and train your sites and stations to ensure a thorough understanding of AmeriCorps and Senior Corps.
Debbie, I'm gonna ask you to jump in on that one.
Yeah, really quickly, we have two kinds of programs. We have team-based program that are anywhere from 12 to 60 members, and then we have individual placement program, which is 1 to 4. So with the individual placement, we have a lot of site supervisors that we're training. So that part of our program does training in person around our state for 1 day in 5 different locations. They take it out on the road and establish good contact with those supervisors. And then we follow up with webinars on a regular basis, kind of real-time training like performance member management, try to do some life after AmeriCorps training with our supervisors so they know those things kind of in real time. And then we do the same thing with our team supervisors, there's fewer of them. And so we can often pull them, or not often, but we do pull them together and do, again, sort of in-person training, so we at least have that contact at least once a year with that. So it's funding that gets tough to support those kind of trainings. I think more and more that seems to be something that gets cut out, and yet it's one of the most critical pieces. So we keep looking for efficient, cost-effective ways to do that. So I'm open to other ideas.
Hopefully we'll hear some of those.
Yeah.
Margaret, would you like to share?
So, yes, so we do not have a formal training process with our stations. We do have paperwork, the memorandum of understanding, and we try to be very clear and concise with those bullet points on what is expected of them and what we can do in return. We do have a handbook that it gives a little bit more information than the real bulleted, this is a contract. And again, it's the follow-up to make sure that we have met the need of the workstation, but also making sure that the volunteer is happy at that particular workstation. We, in taking information about a new station and or a new job, so volunteer opportunity, we try to get the station to be as specific as possible. We have found the more information you have in trying to recruit people and to have a job description, for lack of a better term. So people they're aware of the expectations, and then from there you can narrow that down or open that up, and people know ahead of time. So, and then like I said, training, we do not do any formal training with our stations. We do like to get out and visit as much as we can. With that, we do a slideshow at our recognition dinner, which is another excuse to get out to the workstations to take pictures and photos and things in person. But again, if you have any questions about our paperwork and things like that, that's really where we do provide the most information for our stations.
Great, thank you.
One of the things we started doing, because we have program coordinators, 7 of them, who go on site visits twice a year, and they stay about a week in each community of members. And one of the things they do in their fall visit is bring all of the site supervisors in that one community together for a meeting, so that there's some promising practices discussed, and there's AmeriCorps training done at that time, and questions answered, and building relationships, as well as webinars and those kinds of things that we do. Well, those are all the formal questions that we have, and I wonder if we want to just take a moment. We've been speaking at you. Just take a minute to just stand up, take a little break, but maybe jot down a question that you have for the panel, or a comment that you'd like to make, or some additional information about what you do that might be helpful for all of us. So let's just take a minute break.
Question right there?
You have a question?
Yes, you have a
here?
question.
Is there any way to moderate the temperature?
I will check that out. You're freezing. Yeah, okay, I'll check that out.
Shannon, you can come right there. Just move.
I just moved.
Maybe you might have to move to it, yeah. maybe
No, that's
move.
right, that's the easy way.
Where are they coming?
There's not a
Come on.
Did you?
I think it's up here.
it's cold. Yeah.
Is it?
Mary just went to check to see if we can monitor.
How's it going in the video?
Looks pretty good to me. It sounds good.
Yeah,
So,
any questions?
yeah, this has been a
Oh,
little
I'll
bit this to a slightly more prominent place.
Okay, great, yeah, because I forgot to mention that, so I will do that.
So you guys are gonna do some, like,
We're a
lot of
fixed
towns,
grant too.
they point them
We're a
out,
fixed
$25.
grant too this
Oh,
year.
are you?
As a,
It's
We're so
nicer in so
tradable.
many.
You still have to keep track of
You bet.
everything though.
You bet,
so-
you bet.
Yeah.
Of course we do, yeah.
So you sound like
It doesn't alleviate that piece of it, boy, it's sure nice though not having the in-kind match, but.
Now, what do you mean you don't have the in-kind match? I guess I don't understand that.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Don't we have to provide the match? I thought we did.
We don't, we just have to make sure we have enough funding to cover the operational cost of the program. And then we do
But,
not have
okay,
to.
all right, I understand. We
whereas
still generate the match, but you're saying we don't have to report it to anybody.
Right, well, and
But
what we
don't you
do,
have to
we
report
collect, we don't collect any in-kind at this point. We only collect cash, member placement fee to support the grant funding. And then we,
Yeah, you need to dress like you live in Alaska.
I do.
keeping track of the in-kind match was such a difficult
It's in the other
piece
room.
for our
But don't you have to report that at the end of the year?
All right.
We really don't report it.
Jan, are we
It's
ready?
monitored, and if there's an OIG audit, and we have our ESC, but we don't report.
All right, let's come
anything
back
about our
and
budget.
hopefully we'll have some
Only our stipend money.
really great discussion here and some good questions. There are two mics, one's positioned here and one's positioned on that side of the room, and we would appreciate you using the mics because this is being filmed and we're one of the virtual panels. So we would love your comments or questions. Come on up to the mic. Yeah. Put you on stage.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I know everyone's favorite thing.
I don't know if my issue is relative to what everybody else is here for, but I work in a rural county, actually 2 counties, and part of the issue that I have is that I'm supervising a half-time staff person in one county and then a half-time staff person right across from me, and it's a lot easier to supervise her. But what I think a lot of we all share in common is just this geography issue, and that even just staff, let alone stations and volunteers, that's like, I'm not even there yet. I have an issue, and our agency has an issue, because I work for the Area Agency on Aging, having the people in the northern county feel connected to us. And we use video conferencing sometimes, but actually that has not worked very well, because some of the issues that come up in staff meetings and stuff just aren't relevant. You know, if it's talking about emergency procedures in our building or something, you know. So they're sitting there, and then there's also an etiquette issue with video conferencing, that some people forget they're on camera and do things like eat or, you know, look at their computer or worse. So anyway, the issue is, how do you keep your staff feeling connected and informed and part of, you know, the whole? I mean, the whole idea of relationships and, you know, all the terms that you've been using affect also staff issues.
A great point. Does anyone have a similar situation, Margaret?
I do. So I mentioned our main office is in Bozeman, Montana, and then our Park County, Livingston office is 25 miles away. When I first came on board, the office for our RSVP program in Livingston was in a, Shannon, you'll have to help me, but a closed down. Well, yeah, I'll get to that. But it was a closed down school, and it had been turned into offices. Honestly, Shannon's office space was a broom closet. I mean, it was definitely, so that created isolation right away. We were able to secure a location office space in the Park County Senior Center, and right there remove the isolation of working on your own to another partnership with the Park County Senior Center. Honestly, the new director at the Senior Center was part of that collaboration and partnership. They wanted us there as much as we wanted to be there, so that really did help. And I struggle with that a lot, yes, because we have a part-time coordinator in Gallatin County, a part-time coordinator in Park County, and we're in the same office, so I don't feel like I support the Park County coordinator as much, but I'm always available. We do have meetings. Shannon could speak to this as well. I might not be available, but there are resources there at her office now that she didn't have before. She couldn't just walk down the hall and share an example of a senior issue because that whole space was open to different organizations or businesses. But now in a senior-focused area and office space, there is that support there. And I would open it up to Shannon as well, who's our coordinator over in Park County, and you can provide feedback as well on the pros and cons of that isolation versus not being with the program staff.
Yeah, what I found. Would you go to the mic, please? Sorry. What I found with Margaret when she took over is an inclusion. I'm part of the advisory council, which lets me know what's going on and lets me give input about what we're doing. Also there's more communication going back and forth. I did feel very isolated, and I was at a point of letting go of the job because there's a point where if you don't have that interaction, and my seniors couldn't get to me, the lift was out. So my seniors couldn't, my Counterpoint volunteer, which is a handicapped organization, got caught on the stairs 3 times in a little over a year and had to be lifted off in her wheelchair. I mean, it was pretty drastic. But literally, Margaret came in and had them create a space in the senior center. And it is ideal, and I feel very much more supported, and that's what I find the difference. She knows what's going on, and I know she knows what's going on. So if I call, it's not, well, what are you doing? Yeah. Thank you, Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie?
Thank you.
Yeah, Maureen, how many times do you have those video conferences? What's the frequency on that?
Just monthly.
Okay, monthly. So what I did to try to make or help my members stay interconnected, both to me and themselves, is I don't know if you tried Gmail groups. There's some stuff out there. And on a typical day, I might have 3 or 4 up on Gmail, and they're just up there, and I'm just, how's the weather out there? What's going on? And I sense that's probably your case too. Covering 2 counties, there's probably, what's happening, and they might, just little things. The ducks are flying, the leaves are turning, but it kind of just checking in, always just to let them know you're there is nice. And then I went to a weekly teleconference, and our bandwidth isn't such that I would probably entertain a video conference, but the teleconference is a little less committal. They can not worry about their hair. It might be a little less obligatory on their end, and they might be more willing to participate with each other. And then the last piece is I've tried and failed many times to host my teleconference like a radio show where they call in, and I've had like fictitious guests at times. I had one I called Cora, the disgruntled member from 2007. And she gets on, and this is another of our staff members, and she gets on, it's all scripted, and she's arguing with me about can't get her Ed Award because she didn't serve, and I say, well, you didn't complete, and we go on. And then I launched into my topic, which was conflict resolution. So you can have these little things going on. We do icebreakers online, how many holes in a cracker, like a pilot bread cracker is a thing endemic to Alaska, but maybe you have something like favorite country western song, worst country western song, worst lyrics. And just little things that people can laugh about. The folks that don't stay on board with my teleconferences, there's usually an apathy that underlies that, and they usually don't complete either. And so you see that they're not only non-participatory in the tellies, but they're also kind of failing in the reporting, and those are the ones you gotta, what's going on with you? That's one-on-one. But the Gmail's been pretty good with us, and it helps, I think.
Can I just add to that?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks to Charlie for the teleconferences because they work really well with my program as well. I think the important thing is to make them regular. So I have mine every Thursday at 11. Charlie has his at 10. And I also offer some education during that teleconference because as part of my program is the training that I need to do for the members on wellness. So it's either on tobacco or alcohol or other substance abuse. And then just on wellness activities for youth. So doing that and then telephone, just pick up the phone. I too have members call in probably 3 times a day, if not more.
Yeah. I'd like to add, if they have any problem about a regimented teleconference time, I got into this thing my second year also, well, that won't work for me. And then I went, wait a minute, you guys are mine. You've committed to a year of service. Surely you can spend an hour, and that hour is going to be 10 o'clock every Thursday morning. I've never changed it in 6 years, going on 7. So, I mean, remember that if you start getting into this and pulling your hair out because, oh, man, this teleconference doesn't sound like it's going to work for anybody, it has to be pretty legitimate. Sometimes there's some child care issues or there's some, but for the most part, they're yours.
Hope that's helpful. Yes, great. What other questions? Yes, please come up, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I run 4 AmeriCorps programs. We have about 240 members. 2 of them are statewide. I work in California. From San Diego up to Sonoma and Napa counties, so it's quite a distance. I appreciate all of the talk about monitoring and getting new partner sites and how to maintain ones. We've had, unfortunately, a couple of scenarios where we've needed to let a few partner sites go because the compliance wasn't there. I'm just curious how you've approached that in the past, and I'd love to hear any lessons learned. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. That's a good
Charlie.
one.
Yeah, they're inevitable. And I cannot imagine, how many members do you have? All 240 in 4 different sites or 4 different programs?
And 2 of them are statewide.
2 of them are statewide, so you have different performance measures probably, or 4 sets of. So it's difficult. One of the things I do is I send out a memo when I need some important forms to come back, and I describe that's a listserv that goes out to 35, 40 people. I include the site supervisors with the members so that if there's any so they get the memo. So there they've had the message, and then my follow-up calls are, I see that you haven't done this certain matrix or you haven't sent in this form yet, and I will hold the payments over their head a little bit, the stipends. Well, I can't pay because you're not meeting this. We had to bend our language in our guidelines for what, the member guidelines or our agency guidelines? I can't remember, maybe both, to make them consistent, so we could actually hold that over their head. Because in some cases you can't do that. It's just, you have to pay them a stipend, they put in the hours. Well, they claim hours, but they didn't turn in the vital stuff. So I usually use the stipend thing, but I'll tell them that funding the program is vital. If we have the statistics, we can get this grant again. Most people want it bad enough that you get upline support of that. In other words, their superiors and their superiors will go, holy, we want this grant back in our community. We'd better make sure this happens. So in many cases, I have site supervisors or other tribal administrators cajoling them into just doing the stuff, And just for an example, what's one of your toughest pieces?
I think one of our toughest pieces is we have member groupings of anywhere between 6 members and 26 members. And each of them are individually placed at different sites. So we have kind of a 3-tiered structure. We have our program, which operates the statewide grants. And then we have what we call supervising organizations, which are kind of larger community partners. And then they partner with smaller nonprofits and community organizations, and those members are placed there.
Okay.
So our issue is more at the very bottom level, and particularly much smaller organizations when it's just an executive director. We do a lot of work training everybody to understand what the program is and what we're about, but the challenge then is how do we be available for the community and yet also make sure that the compliance is happening.
Oh, go ahead.
Well,
And then I wondered-
if you're in a situation where you have communities that are continually going to go for this program, ours is a competitive process. If you go upline very far, there will be concerns that if people aren't performing down on those lower tertiary levels, that you might discontinue the program there, and I definitely play that one. It's like, yes, I cannot afford to have empty monthly reports coming in from the members. Can you do what you need to ensure that I have data? Because otherwise, and I'll just say, your community is showing me nothing for the year. We've been in there 7 months, I have nothing to show. That doesn't look good. It's a difficult conversation, but every year that goes by, I get better at it. So.
Thank you, Charlie. Anyone else have some experience with that? Debbie, I bet you do.
Yeah, we do a lot of sub-granting, so our grantees do some sub-granting to other sites, which I think is the kind of the point you're struggling with too, as we do. And we do kind of hold those primary sites as ultimately responsible, and we monitor them to in turn seek all the information. And we put them and the sub-site on corrective action, and we set some very specific time frames for that, and so they understand the ramifications, and have an opportunity to correct it as we would see it being corrected, or as they may come up with a solution once they understand the significance of the problem or issue, because you still want to leave everybody with a good feeling about AmeriCorps as good as you can possibly, but there's just too many other issues, with that. And then ultimately, sometimes we will do that corrective action, and we let it go, and we say we're ending at the end of that year, and they're just not continuing that partnership, whether or not we had a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year cycle commitment to them. And they understand. We're all pretty much in agreement at that point, and it's a pretty final, formalized conclusion, and it is the reality that you have to do. But we really try to do corrective action where they're involved and have a chance to contribute to that. So I think those are the biggest things.
So those are great suggestions. I think trying to get the pressure, I was hearing pressure from Charlie, and moving up the line, and then also the corrective action, which is something we use as well. And sometimes it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not ready.
They're not
Sometimes they're
ready.
just not
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah. Other questions, concerns? Yes, please come up.
My question's for you, the Foster Grandparent Program. I'm Barb Brady, and I'm from Montana, from Billings, and my territory covers 7 counties and 3 Indian reservations. And my one, I think, really big weak spot is orientation. If I got somebody coming on up at the Fort Belknap Reservation, I have to drive up there and I have to stay overnight. I'll interview somebody and try to do orientation right away, but you know how it is with background checks and all of that. I've come up with some different ideas on how to make sure everybody has a really good orientation, but it's difficult when people come on piecemeal. I hear other big programs are so lucky they get 10 on at a time. They have these big formal trainings. I can't do that with one here and then one there. And what do you do with your territory?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do an abbreviated orientation, but we really do try to include all the elements so that people are not being shortchanged. But I try to do it in a day as opposed to doing it over 2 or 3 or 4 days. It's not the most effective way to do it, but so far it's been successful. Then we try to bring people to the larger orientation when we do have those. And let them participate if they wish to do that. But it's a challenge. It is.
Have you thought, I've kind of been toying with the idea of doing something on YouTube and having some little short, not necessarily to replace orientation, but to be a Band-Aid if there's a snowstorm and I can't get over the pass, or something that they can look at with their volunteer station. Have you done anything like that?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, okay.
I think
might
it's
try
a
that.
brilliant idea. I think as much as we can use media to be a substitute, when we can't be there. That's a great, thank you for the tip. Anyone else on that?
Well, I haven't, you gave me an idea, it's wonderful. I think Sonia and I have made a site supervisor training module, and we offer makeup after makeup teleconference, and what they do is we ship them out a PowerPoint, or we abbreviate it to a PDF, so it's a smaller file size, so you can get it out there. A lot of your sites might have like 10 megabyte bandwidth limit or something, so we make a small enough document that they can review it ahead of time. Then Sonia and I go on in the teleconference. We tried GoToMeeting once, but the bandwidth is a problem. But anyway, your YouTube idea is wonderful because you can have these short little installments. We recently, what did we just do? I had a person who was going to do youth activities, and I was trying to email her to describe how it went, and I got frustrated and said, well, let me just show you. And I took out my iPhone, shot the thing, shot a little video in 1 minute increments so that I could send it out to her, and mailed it right out of the phone. So she got 4 one-part little pieces on how to do a youth activity. But I think the same could be done for training. This is how you do a monthly report.
Stay up here for the dialogue, Barbara.
That's a great idea. I really like.
Well, now you just gave me an idea too. Blogs are free, and a person could actually do a blog, take your YouTube videos, link them to your blog, and then have tags on them so that they could all be sorted, where you could actually have, your orientation topics, and then you could actually have testimonials from some of your volunteers that give best practices, or teachers, that's a good idea too, teachers that could actually have little topics. So it could be a resource not just for new people, but for the ones that are on your program that need a refresher. Yeah, I might do that.
We have, a member started this site called Trello. You ever heard of Trello? And that's just one name, but it's www.trello.com. She set this thing up and invited all the members. And then it became interactive live, so they would send links. And we have a lot of YouTube videos on there about not only, some of it's like program requirements. We didn't make those videos, but there are documents out there, and all the links to that are there. But there's links to community gardening, there's links to food preservation, there's links to, you could set it up that way through, there's all kinds of these sites that you could organize.
Well, even stuff like how to stay healthy, because we cover hand washing, because kids, all our volunteers get sick the first couple weeks of school, and we warn them about that. But, something like that's on there, so additional training. So when there's a snow day, which there are frequently, although schools in Montana never close for snow, they seriously, they don't. And but if they're snowed in anyway, they could, get on there and go look at stuff. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, talk about Paolo Freire would be so excited with this adult pedagogy going on here. What else? Other questions? See it in your eyes. Come on up. Yes, please.
My name is Alicia, and I'm from Missoula. I just started my 6th year, and part of my job is with the foster grandparent program. So Missoula, most of our foster grandparents are in Missoula, but we do have some rural schools outside, and we had gotten a call from a volunteer who was about 35 miles away, and I didn't have any contacts at that school. I couldn't get the school to call me back. Again, volunteer station manager buy-in. And then my manager discovered there was a Vista there. And so I called the Vista. Her name is Hannah. And then I'm like, why haven't I done this before at other schools? Because she met with me. I trained her about the program. And then she met with myself and the principal. We did the MOU. And then she set up a training for the whole school, for all the teachers. And this is her job, right? Sustaining these valuable programs. And what a great partnership with Senior Corps. And then I trained the teachers, and then she's like, we need one more foster grandparent now. So I think, and I am an AmeriCorps alumni, but I really believe that it can be better when we're all working together. So I keep now a list of all the Vistas in Missoula County, because you just never know. And a lot of them are in the schools doing after-school programs. And it was really I think, great for her. It was a good experience for her too. But I just wanted to share that and give a little shout out to Hannah, the Vista.
Fantastic idea. And, you know, I was just thinking, and when you mentioned Fort Belknap, we have 4 AmeriCorps members in Hayes at a small school there. We do. And we're in St. Xavier, Montana. We're in Ashland, Montana. And we're at St. Charles. Anyway, we'll talk. Perfect. So Alicia, see what you started? This is going to be a wave of everybody working together. This is just very exciting. Anyone else have some ideas or comments? That was a wonderful one. Anyone want to comment on that or piggyback on it? No. Mary, any virtual questions? None. Okay, out there in TV land, we're ready for your question. Anything else? All right. Well,
Thank you.
Just a little wrap up. I would just like to thank greatly. It's been a real pleasure. I knew Debbie, but Debbie was the only person I knew from this panel. And so what a pleasure to meet each of you. And I'm just so grateful. And just wondering if anyone has any last comments that, you know, something's popped in your brain or that you would like to ask. Go, Charlie.
There are those days that you just seem to be hitting your head against the wall, and it's just important every morning you wake up to remember the work we do, what we want to do, and to let that be your driving mission when things, you know, in the microcosm are like going to hell, right? So just have that vision, I think, and remember what it is. And then I always, this comes from before AmeriCorps. I did 5.5 years with a youth program with Job Corps as a recreational advisor. Worked one-on-one with about 1,300 kids, climbing walls, fishing, glaciers. I did a lot of stuff with youth, and that led me to do what I do now. But anyway, one of the tips that I got from a supervisor was to, on a bad day, try to finish it off by spending 10 minutes with somebody that has really influenced you. And my members, I always say, I'm your coordinator, but you guys don't believe what you give me. Yeah. I've learned so much from my members through the years and the people I've met. And so if you're having one of those days, just at 3 o'clock or whatever, get on the phone with somebody, just chat with them. Because they will bring back all those little pieces in a lot of ways that, oh, this is why I do this. And you'll walk out of there, you know, having put in a day that you can measure in a positive way. But that helps me.
That's a wonderful idea. Any other final?
Well, I'll just add that, you know, we have this resource just at our fingertips, and to use it and to use your other coordinators within your state. That's been so nice to having come back into the program, to be able to email other directors or have other directors email me and just ask a question. And, you know, don't recreate the wheel. See what somebody else is doing. You can always add to it, take away from it. But, you know, we all have paperwork, we all have forms to fill out. And so sharing those resources, not, you know, and being open to that as well. I think that's really valuable to find out from each other what is working, what's not, you know, and things of that nature. But I think the biggest tool and resource we have is among ourselves, and just, you know, Alicia's story as well as all the other stories. And don't be afraid to reach out and talk to people, and because that conversation will lead to so much more, you know, and be that community resource. So that's what I would say. So feel free, if there is information that you want. I've got business cards, and I know all of us would pass out that information, but you know, be able to share that information and work together.
That is so true. We're beginning our 4th year, and I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with the 5 state commissions that we are part of. And there's also a great resource that Debbie and I have been participating in the summers that Washington State Service Corps, or the Washington Commission offers with University of Washington. And it's a leadership forum, and there's 3 components. It's a graduate level course for 1 week. But I'd encourage you to look at their website. It's a great course, and I've learned a lot. And other folks here have been in it. So we've learned a lot. And also that's where you get to know, I know a lot of people here because of that forum. So there are great resources here. And I'm sure you all are the great resource, too, that I'd like to pick your brains. So. Well, thank you very much. I would encourage you to be in touch with anyone here on the panel. That we all have cards, and we'd love to share with you. And I just want to say thank you very much for coming today, and I think we'll wrap it up.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that was fun.